the last driving video I did finished off looking at the cement letters in George Burns' driveway that he wrote, his own initials in the driveway. So we're starting this video at that point.
And where he lived with Gracie, it was the front of the home from the Burns and Allen show. And this is the house where I got that door. And I went in and I got the light switch right after George died. And we used to see George driving up this street, pulling into his driveway. He always went into Hollywood to sign autographs in his office, pulling his driveway. And one day I was here, my buddy and I went up there and kind of waited right here. And he drove up and met him as he got out of the car and talked to him for a minute. I got an autograph. He autographed my Sgt. Pepper album, actually. But something that's kind of cool, George put his own initials here in the driveway, and they're still here. But I do have a picture of George in that driveway there. Beautiful neighborhood. Of course. There's a driverless car, the Waymo. Nobody behind the wheel. Passing George Burns' house, which is sort of like generational. You have that and you have that. A lot of people commented on that robot that I filmed or shot video of, and when I did that update video, had a delivery drone or thingy on it. This is from a video I did a little while ago, updating 4 stories that I covered in the past, and this little robot made an appearance. Oh, are you stranded, Alyssa? These things are all over Los Angeles. I don't know how they aren't all knocked over, but
hey, Alyssa.
They're around. They're everywhere. As I mentioned before, Beverly Hills streets are lined by one type of tree the whole way down, and each street is different. Right now we're on Elm Street, and these are not elm trees, but we are heading down to the Nightmare on Elm Street house. That was good. There it is. The real life Nightmare on Elm Street house, the Menendez house. I'll get out. They've been renovating it, and I'm just going to get out and do a quick walk through the front. This is the audio I played during the Dearly Departed tour when we passed this house.
On August 20th, 1989, Lyle and Eric Menendez murdered their parents, Kitty and Jose, as they sat watching television in their home. Kitty had just finished Eric's college application. Jose was eating a bowl of berries and cream when the two sons rushed into the room with shotguns blazing. They hit Jose in the back of the head, killing him instantly, yet they shot him several more times. Kitty was worse. They shot both arms and legs. They shot off her left breast. They left her alive, writhing on the floor. As they left the room, went out to their car and reloaded. They returned to the room, and Lyle put the gun up to his mother's cheek and pulled the trigger. She watched him do it. The two sons took off, ditched their clothing and their guns, returned later and pretended to be grieving sons. From a telephone just inside the front door, Lyle picked up the phone, dialed 911, and made this call. They said it was a performance worthy of an Academy Award. The two sons masqueraded as grieving sons for several weeks, meanwhile burning through their parents' fortune. They bought a restaurant for cash, Porsches, and expensive jewelry. Finally, Eric blabbed to his psychiatrist, and the jig was up. It took several years, 2 trials, and 3 juries, but the two sons were given 2 life sentences with no hope of parole. Now, here's Lyle Menendez explaining in his own words what they did to their parents.
We were running in, and the room was dark, obviously, because the TV was on. And there were like shadows, and some shadow moved toward me. And I started blasting, and my brother started firing. We continued to fire, and there was still movement. Somebody was scrambling around that coffee table is all I could barely see because the room was so smoky. And all I could feel was lots of shots going around the room and bouncing off, the pellets bouncing off from the shotgun. And I didn't know what was going on. So I just ran out of the room and went and got another shell and ran back in the room, and it was dark and smoky, and fired again at the person that I had seen by the coffee table. And I was in a crazed state. I came back in the room, and I shot a final time. Turned out to be my mother, which is a great unfortunate thing to me, but I didn't even think about it at the time. And I just dropped my guns, and I went into the foyer, and I waited. And I just slumped against the wall. I was exhausted from the event, and my brother was there, I guess, in the room, too. And I waited in the foyer for the police to come. And I figured, all right, well, I guess I'm going to jail. But, at least I'm going to give it my best shot to explain to them what happened. And they never showed up. Nobody ever called. Whatever it is, 12 shots in the middle of Beverly Hills. Nobody called. And everybody in the neighborhood heard it, too. Because they got about 10 people coming in saying they heard the shot. And nobody called. They just figured, oh, Beverly Hills, it can't be. So we waited, and I must have waited there 10 minutes. And finally, my brother and I kind of snapped to it, and we just said, let's get the fuck out of here, and we can maybe come up with an alibi or something. Seriously, I'm not just going to call the police and turn myself in. And so that's what I did. I left.
It's been very newsworthy because the two were made eligible for parole because of claims that things happened to them. No one's been able to prove that it did or didn't happen. No doubt about it, the parents were never going to win Parents of the Year, and there's no doubt about it that those two could have left. Eric and Lyle could have just left, but they didn't. They chose to stay. And Ryan Murphy made a TV show about it, which became very successful, and Ryan Murphy sort of become the new Kenneth Anger in a way. Celebrities got involved because of a TV program, and legal things happened. Fortunately, I think the two are behind bars, and they'll stay behind bars because the media, celebrities should not dictate what happens in trials, especially 40 years after they blew their parents away with shotguns, claiming self-defense. There were no weapons. The parents were watching television. They could have left, but they didn't leave, and they chose to stay and cash those checks and spend that money. And when Lyle said, I shot my mother, which is a really unfortunate thing for me, I thought that was very telling. So I've never made my feelings about this secret, but it just, they were never going to win Parents of the Year, like I've said before, but they could have left. They could have left. We're about to cross over the border from Beverly Hills into West Hollywood. As we're on Sunset Boulevard, we will be on the western end of the Sunset Strip heading east. Coming up on the right is a former Land Rover Jaguar dealership, which was originally the Cock and Bull restaurant. And I figured, well, since that's going to be demolished soon, we'll just have a quick look around while it's still there. This is the view from the other angle coming towards us.
Crazy intersection. The old Hamburger Hamlet, that's where I met Dean Martin and he bought me a beer, and that's the Jack Webb building and Cher and... Oh yeah, a guy jumped off, I think the 17th floor. He was visiting a condo that was for sale.
It's a sad story. It was actually the 27th floor of the Sierra Towers. It was November 2nd of 2020. A man by the name of Paul Robbins was being shown an apartment, and when the real estate agent turned his back, Robbins went off the balcony, and there's no foul play involved. Several people witnessed it, and he died instantly.
It hasn't been the Cock and Bull for a very, very long time. You're not going to see much but the walls in there.
The Cock and Bull restaurant opened in 1937 on this corner, and it was a British-themed restaurant, Yorkshire pudding, roast beef, Welsh rarebit. It's also where the drink, the Moscow Mule, was invented, which is the mixture of vodka, ginger beer, and lime juice. It was there for 50 years. In fact, it was a place where Rock Hudson, Marilyn Monroe, Frank Sinatra, Joan Crawford, Ronald Reagan, and all the way through the 60s, Jim Morrison would eat there. And once he infamously left drunk, and he grabbed a red tablecloth from the restaurant and headed out to Sunset Boulevard and began acting like a matador to the oncoming traffic. The restaurant closed in 1987 after 50 years, and the building was purchased by an automobile dealership. It was the Hornburg Jaguar place, and it was there for 30 years until it was bought out by a developer who's going to knock it down and build this insane building, 53,000 square feet of interior space, a restaurant, upper floors would be office suites. So this gigantic albatross will be there with flashy, loud billboards, which still boggle my mind, because when you're driving down Sunset Strip, you're assaulted by this blinking, flashing LED lights, and the whole point of driving isn't to sort of keep your eye on traffic, especially on Sunset Boulevard when people are darting in and out constantly. So I don't get it, but there you are. They tried to get the building historic status, but because the building was 90 years old or thereabouts, but since the exterior changed so much, it didn't qualify. And even if they got it, so what? They did knock it down anyway.
Boy, how many movie stars, celebrities drove through these gates? Yeah, we just passed the old Cock and Bull. Bing Crosby's studios on the next block. Gil Turner's liquor store on the corner on the left. I got that Alfred Hitchcock tattoo at that Bing Crosby place. It used to be Shamrock Tattoo. I don't know what it is anymore, but it's this building on the right. Now it's, what is it? Hollywood Vatican. Tattoos and piercings. That used to be Hustler. That's a new building. That's coming down. It says for lease, but it's all short-term stuff. There's plans for all these buildings. But probably the most heartbreaking is that one on the right. That's the Viper Room block, which, the Melody Room.
In a previous video, I showed that entire city block on the right, which is going to be, it's already done as far as the business deal goes. The entire block will be demolished for another high-rise.
The liquor store, that's where the phone was that Joaquin Phoenix used to call 911 when River Phoenix collapsed.
This is the Viper Room? Yes. You calling from a payphone?
Yes. You must get over here, please.
He collapsed in front of the Viper Room, which is right there. You're going to see a statue of Bullwinkle and Rocky, and that used to be across from the Chateau Marmont. It used to be Jay Ward's old place, and now it's a pet place, but they got rid of the statue, but somebody saved it, and there is Bullwinkle. They brought it back a couple years ago.
Rocky and Bullwinkle were hugely successful cartoon characters created by Jay Ward Productions, whose offices were on Sunset Boulevard, about a mile from this location. It was dedicated in 1961 by our own lovely Jane Mansfield. And the LA Times, I got this information from roadsideamerica.com. They said that the LA Times described as 5,000 milling, screaming, caterwauling celebrants as Jane pulled the cord to unveil the statue. Jay Ward had his artists, his voice actors, put their elbow prints instead of hand prints in the cement so no one would spill their martinis. For many years, it was a pet grooming place called Hollywood Hounds. That's when I got to go in and sort of poke around and look at those signatures in cement. In 2013, the statue mysteriously disappeared. Actually, it was being restored, and it was returned to this corner in 2020 and dedicated. I believe it had something to do with the city of West Hollywood and DreamWorks, who had it restored. I don't know what happened to the elbow prints.
This street's called Holloway. You guys might recognize it from one of my true crime videos. I came down here. The insane gay murder, the Hollywood vampire, the West Hollywood vampire. Those are two stories I covered before.
The video that's linked in the description below, called Los Angeles Crime Tour Number 2, covers the West Hollywood vampire, a graphic artist who did indescribable things to his wife. The one I call the insane gay murder, and listen to it and you'll agree. I'm not just saying something to be funny. It's an insane gay murder. The lady who got locked in her closet by burglars and rotted away, and the plane crash in the neighborhood just a mile from here. A plane literally crashed into an apartment building. So those are on the LA Crime Tour Number 2 video that's linked in the description below.
And of course, the murder of Salminio, which happened in an alley behind this building on the left, coming up there. I did a Salminio video, so you can see that up close if you wanted to.
In the video, which is linked below in the description, Salminio was stabbed in this carport in 1976. And currently, Lionel Ray Williams, the person who murdered him, confessed to murdering him, is attempting to clear his name, saying he didn't do it at all. I'm not sure what it looks like right now because it looked like they were sealing up that garage, but all the details, including the autopsy report, are in my video, which is linked below.
That was another one of my favorite places was Barney's Beanery, which has been around since the 1920, I think. That's coming up on the left. An old roadhouse. And that they have plans to tear that one down too. They're going to. This is a hotel that was taken over by the city for for housing for homeless people. Well, whatever they call it now, housing challenged. But there's Barney's Beanery. The first episode of Columbo was shot in there. A lot of movies, TV shows were shot in there. I love Barney's Beanery. Good burgers, good chili. Famous for their chili.
The original Barney's Beanery opened in 1920 up in Northern California. This one opened in 1927, literally a roadhouse that served chili. It's gone through several changes, interior and exterior, over the years, but it's always looked like it's been put together with tape and glue. Now, very controversially, the owner put a sign above the bar. I can't figure out when it actually happened, but Anthony didn't like gay people. Can you imagine? In West Hollywood, it wasn't incorporated yet, and there was a large gay population moving in the area. And they say around 1953, the owner put this misspelled sign above the bar. And again, it's kind of ironic because West Hollywood became one of the largest gay populations in America. It wasn't just on the sign, it was actually put on their matchbooks as well. John Anthony died in 1968, and the gays went after the place. It took until 1984, the day West Hollywood became incorporated, that the sign was removed permanently. That bit aside, Barney's Beanery has an awesome pop culture history. Janis Joplin was a regular at Barney's Beanery, and during one of her many, many visits, they say she carved her name into one of the tables. The old tabletops are now put above the tables where they used to be, so they're affixed to the ceiling. And on the night Janis Joplin died, she had her last drink at Barney's before going back to her hotel and dying. And Jim Morrison was arrested for urinating on the bar. So many, many years later, the remaining members of the Doors came to Barney's Beanery and dedicated a plaque to Jim Morrison on the very spot where he was arrested for urinating on the bar. I love Barney's. I'll always go there. They have a good relationship with the local community. All has been forgiven. But it's a very interesting, very colorful history to Barney's Beanery. Oh, and don't think for a moment there aren't discussions about tearing the place down and building a high-rise in its place. The tall white building on the left, called Emser Tiles, you might recognize from the 1987 movie Lethal Weapon. Mel Gibson jumps off the roof while handcuffed to another man.
So this is the intersection of Holloway and Santa Monica Boulevard. We're in West Hollywood. You can tell by the blue street signs. Kings Road on the left, about a block up, is where Jack Cassidy died in the fire. I did a video about that one.
In the Jack Cassidy video, I cover Jack's bizarre relationship with fire in films. And of course, everyone knows he was the father of David and Sean Cassidy, and he died tragically in a fire in an apartment building about half a block up on the left. I actually got in the apartment where Jack burned to death in a fire in 1976. The video link is in the description below.
You could go into the details. That's the Holloway Cleaners. The cleaners to the stars, as they say on their sign. There's real cachet in celebrity clientele.
Celebrity means so much in Los Angeles that almost every building, every business you go to has a sort of star fame wall of people who have participated with that business somehow. And we had one too. Lisa Gibbons, Bridget, Marquardt, Jerry Marin, the Munchkin, Anthony Bourdain, Glenn Hetrick, Jack Russell from Great White, Bruce Valanche, Kesha. So many people have taken our tour over the years, and a lot of people who didn't make the wall.
Sweetser, that's the next street. And about a block up on the left was where Karen Kupcinet was murdered, up this street.
The Karen Kupcinet story is fascinating. I had actually went up to the apartment where she was murdered. which is still unsolved. And I have actual items that were at the crime scene in her apartment. The video is pretty thorough, even her weird association with the JFK assassination. I feel like I'm doing a commercial for my videos here, but then that's my job. Right, you're going to see a bar. It used to be called the Gold Coast. I don't know what it is now. This one here on the corner, the brown thingies, that's where I met Troy. That is where I met Troy. The Gold Coast was on this corner for almost 40 years, and it was just a regular bar. I wouldn't call it a dive bar, but it was a place you could just go and have a beer and not be bothered with. It was just casual and nice, and they played decent music and whatever. So it shut down because of real estate, because of nasty business people. It was boarded up for a while. It became a focal point of graffiti, and then homeless people moved into it. Eventually, they were all kicked out. And what do you know? Elevated, high-end bar with $20 martinis opened in its place. Go figure. But it's where I met Troy. If you look on the left, you'll see a restaurant called Connie and Ted's. It stands where the old Silver Spoon restaurant stood. I wanted to do a quick mention about the Silver Spoon because I loved that place, but then I got stuck into a deep dive. The Silver Spoon became the Silver Spoon in 1990. Before that, it was a restaurant called Theodore. I used to hang out at the Spoon. My dead friend Larry took me there, and I would call the bar at the Silver Spoon a dive bar. The restaurant itself was great. I mean, it served family food, and it was reasonably priced. It was really good food. The bar was fantastic, the best dive bar, and I miss it desperately, and its fabulous band of regulars. And I bumped into so many famous people at the Silver Spoon. Lily Tomlin, Leslie Ann Warren, Scott Wilson, literally knocking into Dolph Lundgren, Martin Landau. Sally Kirkland was there, but actually when wasn't she? The rumor was that she spent so much time there that she had her mail forwarded to the Silver Spoon. Also, Stella Stevens, Robert Forster, Quentin Tarantino. And through Larry, I met a lot of people at the bar, and I'm still friends with those people. Another regular at the Spoon was Shelley Winters. Her favorite meal was tuna on toast with chocolate milk. And after Shelley died in 2006, there was a memorial service on the patio for her. The Silver Spoon closed in 2011, New Year's Eve, and for all intents was destroyed. But not completely. It was stripped down to the bolts, which uncovered a sign, which really made it curious because it looked like a gas station, and that surprised me. So I did some digging and found a few ads that called it Johnson's Service Center. They auctioned off a lot of cars out of the service center. Those ads disappeared around 1962. Then they found the first want ad for a waitress in 1963 for a restaurant that didn't stay there for very long called Reuben's. It's sort of British food or, roast beef and that sort of a thing. The first ad for Theodore's I found was in 1965. So apparently the owner who opened Reuben's didn't do too well with it, and it was closed, and a man named Theodore bought the place. And in 1965, it actually featured entertainment. Now, in 1985, I saw the Theodore fixtures were up for auction, but a couple of years later, I found that it was still open as remodeled, and Theodore eventually closed completely, becoming the Silver Spoon in 1990, which made it to the year 2011. The Silver Spoon is gone, and a new restaurant is built around the original restaurant and is now you guessed it, upscale restaurant. I thought the Silver Spoon was destroyed completely, but looking at it further and comparing it to those pictures I took when it was stripped down to the bolts, if you look, the interiors of Connie and Ted's look the same as it did back then. So it is a remodel. It's not a complete rebuild. And in fact, they wouldn't tear it down because in the state of California, you get a break for leaving a wall up, a load-bearing wall. So Connie and Ted's actually is a remodel of the Silver Spoon by California definition. Connie and Ted's has been there for a while now. I went in once and I actually turned around. The Spoon held a lot of memories for me, and I didn't feel like soaking up the new ambiance. Plus, I'm not a big fan of seafood. I'm still in touch with my old friends from the Silver Spoon, the ones who are still alive. We met up recently at the El Coyote. I love my LA friends. And I saw something written down somewhere, and this really stood true for me. Instead of trying to be fabulous, we chose to have fun. Crescent Heights, I did a murder video about a woman who was killed she was actually left in her closet and clawed her way out, or tried to claw her way out and died that way. Awful, awful, awful death. The French Marketplace, that's another place that was a very well-known restaurant around. It's been closed for, like 10 years. They were going to tear it down, and they haven't done it yet. The French Marketplace originally opened in the 1930s as a grocery store called Fitzsimmons, and it remained a grocery store till around 1974. And the whole complex was transformed into this New Orleans-style two-story indoor boutique mall swap meet called the Louisiana Purchase, with a restaurant as its focal point. The French Marketplace was really well known around the neighborhood until it closed in July of 2015 to make way for yet another huge construction project. After eviscerating the place, the project fell through in 2024, and the carcass sits there. Thanks, James Riker, for these pictures of the interiors of the French Marketplace. You'll see on the corner the Lee Strasberg Institute, and Marilyn left. Lee Strasberg inherited most of her estate, actually. Strasberg, I don't know which one. And so there was a Marilyn Monroe Theater here that Marilyn herself was actually paying for through her estate. And I think they took her name off of it, but it used to be here on the corner. Oh, it just says theater. As I make this left onto Fairfax, I will end this video. I hope that you enjoyed this driving tour. At the end of this is a link to the other driving tours I've done around Los Angeles. If you live in LA, maybe you learned something new. I certainly did. I didn't know about the history of the Silver Spoon or the French Marketplace. As an aside, no doubt many people will mention that I went through a red light to make that left turn. The driving rule in Los Angeles: if you're turning left and the light turns red, 3 more cars get to go, if you're lucky. So maybe your journey is a little bit more interesting, and if you didn't, maybe, I don't know, I hope you enjoyed it. The links to the other driving tours are at the end of this video, and in the description will be the other videos that I mentioned earlier, the Karen Kupcinet murder video and the Jack Cassidy death video. Those are listed in the description below this video, and at the end of it's a link to my other driving tour. So thank you all for watching. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your attention. I like being a tour guide, and I miss being a tour guide. And until next time.
You heard me.